Hello and welcome to this quick high-level chat about moving to or deploying SAP HANA. My name is Roger, I work for SUSE, and I want to talk to you a little bit about SAP on Linux, which is largely an invisible component of your current or future systems. Being an operating system, it's not often talked about or even thought about, but it is important and it's hardware agnostic, so it doesn't matter whether you run it on x86 technology or Power or ARM in some cases. It doesn't matter if you run it on premise or even in the cloud. And the important thing is that not all Linux is created equal. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to take less than 15 minutes to do so. As you know, SAP is on a journey from supporting multiple operating systems and multiple databases to a new paradigm of a single operating system, which they've selected Linux, and a single database, which of course is HANA. This standardization allows SAP to deliver more product faster to its customers. There's also increasing use of containerized applications to deliver advanced functionality like analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. All this is delivered via Linux as the operating system underpinning SAP applications. Consequently, many of you as SAP customers are also now on a journey to migrate from existing landscapes that have served you well in the past to the new SAP paradigm. There are many questions that perhaps should be asked and answered to discover which path you should take to do that. And I think most of these questions should be asked and answered before embarking on the journey. In New Zealand, as in many parts of the world, a large segment of SAP customers are currently running Windows servers and SQL Server as the database. Many have little or no experience in Linux and are faced with decisions about which Linux is best for SAP and best for their non-Linux skill set. Now, it's probably no surprise that Linux distributions are not all created equal. Like all operating systems, Linux is actually a collection of hundreds or thousands of individual programs that work together to form an operating system. The open source Linux kernel is common core to all distributions, but the other components that are needed to surround the kernel to provide that functionality can be different between each distribution. Most distributions are supported by their own communities, the power of many. To find fixes to bugs, one needs to work within those community pages. There is no one to call, and bug resolution is not guaranteed in any particular time frame, although with the power of many, it's a given that every bug will get fixed eventually. So while there are dozens of Linux distributions available, only 2 distributions are commercially supported, one of which is SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, commonly known as SLES. SAP only supports deploying HANA on the 2 commercial Linux versions available. We know our journey is going to involve deploying SAP on Linux, so perhaps the next question is, do I want to deploy my SAP HANA on-premise or on the cloud? Or perhaps even build a hybrid landscape that covers both cloud and on-premise. Public cloud is viewed as a cost saver versus owning your own hardware, with the costs of purchase, housing, feeding and watering and other factors. This can work out quite well if the landscape is quite static, or if your organisation has strict controls and discipline to stop server proliferation and exploding cloud charges. There are still many that find on-premise installations give them the best value. There are also customers that have tried the cloud and returned to on-premise as being more economic in their particular instance. Even hybrid landscapes may provide the best of both worlds. Every customer experience is different, and yours will be too. So if you're going down the cloud route, there are a couple of things to consider when choosing the licensing model. First, there's a pay-as-you-go model. This is where you go to the cloud marketplace, you tick the boxes on the screen, and the cloud provider will provide everything you need from those virtual hardware instances through the operating system and everything else. So you only get one charge on your invoice. However, pay-as-you-go does tie you in to being only able to deal with the cloud provider for maintenance and support. It does not allow the flexibility to deal with the Linux vendor for support or for fixes. Alternatively, there is a bring your own subscription. This is when you get your Linux subscription from the Linux vendor, say SUSE, and that opens a direct channel to SUSE for support and for all your maintenance updates. If you do not have a great deal of Linux experience, it would be worth investigating the two options, especially if you're considering the need for management and maintenance tools that might be provided by tools like SUSE Manager, for instance. When it comes to choosing between Linux distributions, there are many unique features provided with SUSE Enterprise Linux for SAP applications that are not available from the alternatives. SUSE and SAP enjoy a long and fruitful relationship. SUSE is the platform SAP developed their applications on. They run internally and is the basis for their HANA Enterprise Cloud offering. Because SUSE works in concert with SAP, we are able to build and integrate specific customized features for running SAP applications. This includes special tools and wizards to help support the infrastructure, and even an optimized SAP kernel to squeeze that little bit of extra performance out of the hardware. Let's look quickly at some of the unique value that SUSE offers to SAP landscapes. This table represents our SLES for SAP applications. It is a special edition of our standard SLES operating system, specifically enhanced for SAP and especially for HANA. So we start down the bottom with the base, our industrial strength, hardened, secure Linux server that offers all the enterprise class features you would expect, including the ability to implement security and reliability patches to a live system without the need for a system reboot. And that's especially relevant with in-memory databases. SLES for SAP comes with 24-hour priority support and a 4.5-year maximum support on a service pack release to keep the requirements for upgrading to a minimum. On top of this base, SUSE and SAP have worked together to include tools to get customers up and running quickly as possible and as easily as possible. Starting with install wizards that get the SLES for SAP installed on the system, and if deploying in the cloud, there are also wizards and templates to get that done quickly as well. Once installed and running, we want to ensure that systems are running as optimally as possible, and we include functions and tools to achieve that. One unique tool is SAP Tune, a feature you set to the appropriate landscape you've deployed, and it will automatically and continually search and download the relevant SAP notes for that landscape. SAP Tune can then, if desired, automatically deploy all the relevant SAP note recommendations for that particular implementation, or you can manually control what and when changes are made. This helps build consistent deployments with every appropriate SAP setting and parameter. And of course, reliability and resilience is paramount to any landscape, especially with in-memory databases, where a server failure or even a simple restart can take hours. SUSE have integrated high availability extensions, tools and wizards along with SAP HANA HA resource agents, and they monitor and automate availability and failovers if implementing an SAP HANA cluster. The SAP HANA Firewall delivers a number of security features that enhance an SAP HANA landscape. So regardless of where you decide to deploy your HANA landscape, there is a question of how to get from where you are today to the SAP suite of the future. We've been seeing two scenarios. The first one seems to be the most popular locally, and that's to migrate your database to HANA, keep the existing application servers on the current operating system, and it's very common to see the app servers still running quite happily on Windows and just the HANA servers running on Linux. And the idea of that, of course, is that in future, you would then follow on with a move to the full S4 HANA suite, or maybe Business One HANA, if that's what you're running. The second option is to migrate the entire landscape to S4 HANA in one big effort. When it comes to the HANA database, the majority of customers seem to be choosing a single HANA database with no replication or high availability. The reasons for this really aren't clear. One point I'd like to make is it is important to understand that HANA is an in-memory database, meaning that when the database starts or reboots, the entire database needs to be loaded with the data from out of storage and into memory. So if your database is many terabytes, which is not uncommon, the loading process can take an hour or more before the database is back online. This means business interruptions. Now, there are technologies that can minimize the time to return to operations, like the Intel Optane persistent memory, which is a hardware option. Alternatively, mirroring your HANA database in a highly available cluster can avoid almost all outages. So the risk factors in an in-memory database scenario are certainly different from those in your traditional database implementation. Now, many organizations enjoy the benefits of high availability by clustering the HANA database. This increases the resilience for the applications and provides a more seamless maintenance structure for updating without outages. Many customers also implement SUSE Manager for an easy interface and structure to perform management functions on the Linux operating systems, either individually or in bulk. Most commonly used functions are automated monitoring, patch management, and providing security audits. These functions barely scrape the surface of what can be achieved with this comprehensive management tool. While predominantly used where there is a requirement to manage dozens up to thousands of Linux instances, we're also seeing smaller organizations now looking at SUSE Manager to provide a graphical tool to assist them to manage SAP and SUSE when they have limited Linux skills. So to summarize, your journey towards SAP HANA, S4 HANA, or B1 HANA is going to take you down a Linux road. There is a choice of supported distributions, but SUSE has the best solution because it is specifically designed alongside SAP and leverages our special relationship. SUSE Linux is robust, secure, and very well supported, whether it's in an on-premise situation, in the cloud, public or private, or even a hybrid environment. SAP have chosen SUSE for the platform on which SAP is developed, built, deployed internally, and SUSE is a foundation for the next generation container applications. SUSE Linux was the first commercialized Linux distribution, and SUSE continues to be a leader not just with Linux, but with other leading open source products. So thanks for your time today. If you want to find a little bit more out about your Linux options, please talk to your SAP business partner or integrator, or you could contact us directly at SUSE. Contact dale.wheeler@suse.com. Dale's our local territory manager in New Zealand, or you can contact myself, roger.brown@suse.com, or visit us at www.suse.com for more information.